When does any time or era become a new era, a new time? When do we become new people? When do we have a new perspective? When is anything, in a real sense, new? I think that what we need most of all is to recognize that, the moment is the only thing that is. And I know I talk about that a lot, but really in a sense that, like, we have to sometimes tell ourselves that was then and this is now. And what that means to me is recognizing that a lot of our feelings and attachment to the past limit us from creating a present where we actually can enjoy, where we actually can be the one who's subject to our experience. And recently, I've been trying to be present, or at least being present, in a sense that I've stopped trying to see representations of what I need in the world, and just started living my life outside of the fear of I guess my own failure, the fear of anything we may fear. In a real sense, I think fear and readiness are two different things, and I think that fear only makes us focal pointed on certain things. I think when we're walking a path in fear, we may, become more inclined to see one thing, but we lose everything else in our obsession. I think the objective should be to sort of remain present so you can see all of those things, and appeal to all your senses. And what I'm recognizing is, even if you fear a negative event happening, it's not going to stop it from happening. Even if we worry about our potential failures, it's not going to stop them from happening if they are meant to. But what I do realize is, a lot of times when obsessing about our failures and obsessing about our fears, we perpetuate them in a sense that we create them and let them be embodied in the world we experience, more than they're actually characteristic of it. I think, like, when we're worried about other people's perceptions, or worried about even our own perceptions at times, we're going to see that much more abundantly. Not in the sense that people will tell us this about ourselves or tell us that, but we may take certain cues from their actions, certain cues from our own, that lead us to believe that we're in a place that we're not. To say that was then and this is now is to say that, the past isn't necessarily to be forgotten. It's to be accepted in a way. And I think we have to accept the past in order to get towards any future. I think the beauty of the present moment is a life not lived in reference to the past or future. And I think that's what truly brings us into alignment, because we can't predict what is yet to happen. We don't know what is yet to come. We don't know who we have yet to interact with, etc., etc. And I think the instant that we learn to trust the path, the instant that we learn to, you know, accept that the only things that we're going to be able to control are in our present moment, then I feel like a lot of the stress sort of goes away. I feel like the past couple months, maybe, I've been thinking about, what I need to do here, what I need to do there, in a way, taking life too seriously, and for lack of better words, and in lieu of sounding repetitive, I think we a lot of times do things for strictly just the outcome. And I think in doing things for the outcome, and doing things for solely how they may benefit you, this, is that, and the other, makes us lose our authenticity and validity that we can get from doing certain things. Like when I write, or when I edit, or when I do this, that, and the other, I think that, our objectives, whenever we're doing anything in regards to our expression, should be to express, should be to do it, should be to be so enamored within the present moment that you cease to be the one doing it, and it feels like it's doing itself. And I think that's where our true peace and happiness are sort of led, because we don't have any type of occupation and necessity for it to look a certain way for us to give it validity and validation. When you're making a poem, when you're making when you're writing, when you're doing anything for you, it's not about how it looks. It's not about how it looks to others, and it's not about the connotations that you may put on it, because it shouldn't have any connotations. I feel like our self-love has no condition. And if all we're doing is expressing parts of ourselves, then we have to love our expressions too. We have to sort of give them a chance to shine in light so we can. And, when we're acknowledging our present capabilities, I think, it's about sort of lowering your worry, not attacking yourself by not playing any defense. I think sometimes we play defense from the world, and we want it to look a certain way so we can affirm certain qualities for ourselves. We want this certain scenario to go a certain way so we can say to ourselves, ooh, I can achieve this. Ooh, I can achieve that. And, I think there's good basis for that in reality. I think when that does happen, we should take that affirmation. But I think when it doesn't mean that we should degrade ourselves or take away from ourselves. I think that we need to sort of learn how to continuously give ourselves a moment and not necessarily base our happiness off of what we see proportional to our goals. We sort of have to learn to exist where we are and learn a sort of patience with life. The path isn't always going to show you your prosperity as soon as you take one step. It's about continuing to take steps. And it's not even about, I guess, worrying about the prosperity at the end or that you gain throughout. It's just about walking it. Your objective isn't to see all the good, all the great, and experience all the great that has to come with the world. It's to be you. It's to experience yourself. And I think once we give ourselves a chance to be experienced and allow ourselves to sort of stop playing this performance, we sort of give ourselves a choice to exist in positivity or negativity. And I think once we actually give ourselves a choice, it's not even like, oh, I have to choose this positivity or I have to choose this negativity. It's like everything pretty much is as it is. And it's only going to be painted by the colors I hold within myself. And what that means to me is recognizing that it's always about how you feel now. You know, especially when it comes to like manifestation, affirmation, any of that kind of stuff. I think our preoccupation with how we are previously or how things were in the past takes away from our ability to bring what we want into the present. You need to, in a lot of ways, recognize that how you feel now is everything, because it's always about how you feel in the present. Your past suffering, your past pain is how you felt in the present. And that's why you repeat it as soon as you not acknowledge it, but in your negligence of acceptance. The more we don't accept, the more we fall victim to in a lot of ways. Because I think to accept something as it is to accept yourself as you are. And recognize that who you are isn't based off of one specific circumstance, not based off one specific this is that and the other. Who you are is a totality beyond our comprehension, and it's new every day. We become new with every single day, every single experience. And to say that is then and this is now is also to say that you have no past self to overcome. It's not about running from who you were previously, but recognizing that's no longer there. And if you do see parts of yourself that are representative of the past, then it's about recognizing what thoughts bring those out. It's about recognizing what things bring those out, and doing what you can with what you have to sort of affirm yourself where you're lacking affirmation. I think a lot of times the past comes to bite us because we have unresolved things that we have yet to give to ourselves in a lot of ways. And I don't mean that to say that everything has to be given to you in a conscious effort, this is that and the other, but the seriousness we take with ourselves, and the more I guess we identify with certain issues of the past, the more we're going to feel like we have to and we're obligated to deal with those things or live through them until we can enjoy the life that we are currently living. And I think it's important to recognize we all made it to this point. Like, if you made it to this point in the video, you've made it far. And you're still here to talk about it. And I think that's worth gratitude in and of itself. I think just as much as we overcome and we pass by and still survive, that's as much affirmation, courage, and strength we should give to ourselves for allowing those certain things to pass, for getting through them and being where we are. And I think in recognizing that separation, it should be the gratitude we give to ourselves in the moment for that something. And I think in that way, we sort of overcome it by allowing ourselves to be where we are. By allowing ourselves to recognize what's currently around us. By allowing us to recognize what's currently inside of us and what's guiding our actions and guiding us our thoughts. In the past, I always talked about how we have to be mindful of what strings pull us, without recognizing that we are sort of the biggest hand when it comes to that. I think we're as powerless as we think we are. And I think if we want to give ourselves power, it's not about constantly telling yourself, I have power, I have power, I have power. And in desperation and coercion. I think when we try to trick our minds, it's sort of like we're tricking ourselves. You sort of have to not look for it in the world, not see it, but be it. Like, I remember something I said in the past is like, the objective isn't to see the life, it's to be the life. It's not to see the experience, it's to be the experience. It's to constantly flow with the life that you're living and recognize the place that you occupy. And recognize how much you can occupy it greater with the positivity and the affirmation that you give to yourself in any given moment. You know? And I think since recognizing this, I've sort of given myself more of a break when it came to anything that I was seeing, anything that I was viewing. And it's allowed me to, be in the moment a lot more than I previously have. And it's a comfort that I can't truly articulate. It's like you're constantly in this race and you're constantly taking steps and you're being so integral with your steps and you're taking it so seriously as if you can be harmed any moment. Walking a path in fear doesn't change the path. It changes how you look at it. It changes how it's walked in a way of mentally. And I think if we're constantly living in our minds in reference to our fear, in reference to our worry, then all we're going to experience in the path is fear and worry. And I was writing about this earlier. I guess I can read something. If we always walk with fear, we'll hardly walk at all. And if all of life is your path, then your fear will only cease when you do. To be abundant isn't to be still on your path, but to confront. But to be content with what you carry. I'm sorry. And it is to smile and watch, for no other option contains the fun of the unknown. At times we watch the path in fear and worry about what could appear as a hurdle, but I'm afraid fear is not readiness. Readiness is confidence in your stride and the eyes which ensure your step in the right direction. And we are blinded by our own fear. If we are only worried about the wolves, then we might, stumble across some ticks or something like that. But if we walk the path, both may be noticed and avoided. It seems at times we are avoiding ourselves, for we can only truly experience who we are when we are committed to being instead of seeing. And I think that, the whole analogy of losing a lot of opportunities to block certain avenues of negativity in our life and our preoccupation with a single one is very real. I think in our insistence of being a certain way, we lose all of our potential to be other ways. And I think in giving yourself the moment and recognizing that this is now, we also permit ourselves with the choice and recognizing that we can be exactly as we wish to be. You can ascend to whatever heights you want to give yourself. And it's not about the act of giving yourself, and it's not the act of convincing yourself you are a certain way, but being that way. And it's about recognizing that you can be whatever way you wish. It may take some time, it may take some patience, but I think the thing it needs most is your presence in life. If we're constantly, I'm not saying that we can't acknowledge the past or recognize the way the past impacts the present. I think we should notice that. But I think in our notice and address of that, it's not about bringing the past to the present, but making sure it doesn't seep into it. Making sure that we're remaining not necessarily fixed on what currently is, but recognizing that what currently is all that is. Any preoccupation we have with our negativity, our past, this is that and the other, is just another thing that we're tuning into a lot of ways. And I think when it comes to tuning into certain thoughts and certain feelings and certain this and certain that, we need to recognize that a lot of times when it comes to our negativity, it's just a tune, a feeling, a thought, a group of thoughts that we've associated with our ego, that we've associated with our identity, so much so that we don't feel the same without them. And I think the objective of your experience isn't to feel like somebody, it's to be somebody. It's not to, I'm Ian and I do this, I have this characteristic, I have that characteristic. It's to be Ian and not preoccupy myself with all of these things. If I want a certain characteristic for myself, it's not about saying, I have this characteristic. It's about feeling like I do, believing that I do, and doing the things that align with that certain thing whenever I get the opportunity. And I think we'll all find that the opportunities don't exist in the past or future. They always exist in the present, because there is no past self to overcome. There's nobody you're trying to get away from. You're always you, and there's no future self to achieve. because the only thing that exists is the present moment. Um, all that really to say that, we need to work on loving ourselves more fervently so we can be where we are, and recognizing that we shouldn't jeopardize our love for ourselves in the negativity that we experience in the world at times, or we have experienced. Not to say we shouldn't acknowledge it, not to say it shouldn't be healed, not to say we shouldn't accept it, not to say we shouldn't, you know, I think all of our pain is worth being looked at. I think all of it needs to be acknowledged. But I think we also need to acknowledge the person that's experiencing the pain. And I think part of that acknowledgement is the love we give to ourselves, and loving ourselves enough to move forward, not necessarily in forgetfulness, but in acknowledgement of what's currently here, and acknowledgement of all the beautiful things that we encompass. Um, all that to say thank you. If you made it this far, thank you. Keep being y'all, keep being great. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, doing what you can, what you have. A lot on the way, a lot already here. Yeah. So